Satisfactory. This is a game that just entered 1.0, and frankly, it is amazing. It is big, it is girthy, and it is deep. And as part of that, there is a huge and vast amount of QOL, quality of life, enhancements and improvements that have been made over the years in this game. And we're gonna go over some of those in this video. These are things that I wish I knew when I started, because if you know these things, it can make your whole playthrough a lot more enjoyable. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. A very cool thing about this game that makes building, especially in different locations, a lot easier is the fact that there is now the world grid. The world grid is a grid when you place foundations and things in the world that snap to a grid that the entire world functions on. And what that means is when you're placing foundations, if you're always on the world grid, you know they'll always be able to connect properly. Now, when you're just putting down a foundation normally, you can see it goes wherever it wants. But if you hold control without being near any snap points, it goes to the world grid. So you can see now when I hold control, it is in a very different place. Now, if you place your first foundation on the world grid, then everything connecting to that foundation on any other world gridded structures will line up perfectly. And that's awesome. So this is a really fast way to build like separate buildings that all will be able to be connected with like nice right angle pipes and stuff later in the game. Another great tip while you're out exploring is utilizing the map markers that are in the game. So if you open up the map, you can see you have a variety of markers across the bottom. These are great ways to mark things you can't get to currently, things you might want to do later, cave entrances, things like that. Now, normally you have to come here, click your mark, and then click wherever it is on the map. That will then add a little thing that you can come to later. However, a very cool feature of this game is the fact that you can hold down the Alt key, look at anything in the game world, and right click. That puts a marker in the game world on the map of whatever you're seeing. So a great thing you can do, for instance, is if you find like a new big thing you want to come back to later, you just look at it, hold Alt right click, whatever you pick for your mine thing, boom, that's now added on your map. So you can do that for cave entrances, power slugs, hard drive things you need to get, any location you want to revisit later. So it's a great way to keep your map updated frequently of things you want to revisit at a later time. While you're out in the world, there are going to be a lot of situations where you need to get up or down very quickly, but especially when you need to go up, it may not be an easy thing to do. Take advantage of ladders. I was having a lot of trouble with that, but if you go down, ladders are a very early game unlock, and these things are so easy in getting wherever you need to go quickly. You can even build ladders from ladders, so if you just need to keep going up, you can just keep doing it. So it's a very easy and quick way to get around. When you get the early game parachute, you can make a ladder to go up and then just easily parachute down wherever you need to get to. It's a fast and easy way to get around early in the game. As a quick note, the ladder is available actually as an awesome shop purchase, so you will want to get an awesome sync going so you can get some tickets early in the game to purchase the ladder. Satisfactory gives you a lot of great ways to adjust your building, and one of the ways they do that is the hologram system. So whenever you're constructing something, a lot of times you need to put it in the perfect place, but the angle you're looking at may not offer that to you. So if you're trying to place a building and you want a little bit more control over it, hit the H key. That places the hologram. You can now move around it, but most importantly, you can now use the arrow keys to adjust it. So if you use the normal arrow keys, you can see going right and left will move it a pretty good amount. You can also do up and down, so it fits in nicely. But most importantly, if you hold down control, you nudge it even a smaller amount. So if this is going left and right normally, and then if you hold control, you get even more control in a smaller way of where that goes. So a great way, especially as your factories get larger, to very easily place things in small areas to keep it nice and intuitive. Next up is the in-game search bar, which also very, very coolly doubles as a calculator. So if you hit the N key, that brings up the quick search, but not a huge amount of people know this also is a great way for tracking, adding, subtracting, multiplying. Whenever you're doing production line stuff, it's a great way to do it. So as you're going down your line of constructors, trying to balance how much iron you need for all of them, if you open up this and just add them as you go through them, this is a quick way that you can then, figure out exactly how much iron you need. Then you take that number, go to your mines, add it up. Super easy, all in game. An awesome way to do it. You can also use a quick search to find all sorts of other things in the game, which will then take you right to it, which is great as well. That synergizes a little bit with the O menu, which is a great way to look up parts and see things that you may need later in your playthrough. This tip is one of the ones that is a little more straightforward, but if you're like me, it's easy to forget in this game. If you hold down the Alt key and use your mouse wheel, you have access to a lot of different hotbars that you can use. What I've seen more experienced players do is have a hotbar for each type of building they're doing. So one hotbar will be like for their iron area, one for their copper, one for their hyper tubes, one for their conveyor belts and mines. And that way they kind of put everything they need on their bar, so they're very rarely opening up their build menu. It's a very expansive system and offers a lot of customization, so something to explore if you like to do that. Following with good QOL that these types of games have, this game also has the very nice middle mouse button copy technique. Looking at any building in the game, middle mouse button will then copy it to put down later, especially when you're starting to build these giant spaghetti systems. When you're putting down lots of similar buildings and similar types of things, it can save you a lot of time getting the middle mouse button copy thing in early, as it'll save you thousands of clicks over your playthrough of bringing up the build menu, scrolling and clicking to what you need, and then clicking on it. So middle mouse button, great way to do it. A lot of times in the game, you're going to have these giant structures, these things that you've built that may all need to be upgraded in tier. Now, originally I thought we had to break everything down and rebuild it, but you do not, and it is awesome that you don't. Whenever you are upgrading the tier of an item, be it a miner, a power pole, a conveyor belt, all you need to do is equip the higher tier item and look at it and then click. That will then keep its placement, keep its connections, and just upgrade it to max. So you can see here, the 3 dots on the side of this conveyor belt indicates a T1 belt. Well, if I go to T3, I can place it normally, but if I click over this, it turns blue. You can see the 2 lights indicate the new tiering. I click, and everywhere that is now updated. So very cool trick to save you a lot of time when upgrading your facilities. So this tip is for deconstructing, which you will do a lot of in this game. One thing you can do that makes this game super intuitive is group deconstructing. If you hold down Control, anything you mouse over will then be added to your deconstruction list. If I hold the mouse button down now, every single thing that you see highlighted will be deconstructed. Now this is super cool, but there are going to be times when you want to maybe deconstruct a whole lot of stuff around a whole lot of other stuff. What do you do then? So what they've implemented is this very cool filter feature. So if you look at a certain thing like this foundation and you hit the G key, it is now only selecting that item when you do group selection. So now when I hold down Control, it is not selecting anything else except the item that I selected. So what this will do is it means that you can deconstruct one type of item in a sea of other items, and you do not have to worry about accidentally selecting anything by accident. Now, this tip is a little general, but it's one that I didn't really do early, and I just it's one of those things that it's good to know. And this is one of those things that's good to know early. This game has 2 main pillars, not just one. You would think that this is the construction game, right? This is Satisfactory. You build a giant factory. That's what you do, right? Right. However, there is another very key pillar to this game, one that I would argue in many cases is just or more as important, and that is exploring. The world of Satisfactory is vast. It is large, and it is full of very interesting things that most importantly can make your life a lot easier. So definitely take some time. Take some time specifically to leave your base, go out, and explore. You have this very cool little device that you can equip called the Object Scanner. In here, by right-clicking, you can see all sorts of very interesting things that may be out in the world. Keep in mind, combine this with the Alt-right-click key to mark fun things as you come across that you may not be able to get to now, and you'll see all sorts of amazing, cool things out there. I do want to mention, although we don't have a specific tip for this, be researching early. Frequently check your research, and anytime you see that you are capable of doing a research, like you see the items in there and you know they're either obtainable or craftable, do it. Because sometimes unlocking that research stuff will dramatically change what you can do in the game and how you can play it. A relatively early game tip that's pretty minor but really helpful is that a lot of items have different ways to use them. A great example being the zipline. When you use a zipline normally, you have to hold left click. Now this means the entire time you're on the zipline, you're holding left click, which of course is a bit of a thing. However, like many things, there are multiple uses to this device, and a lot of keys do different things to them. So one thing, for instance, is if you look down, I'm holding W, now I'm sprinting. Now I'm holding W, now I'm sprinting. So just sprinting on something like this is something you may want to consider. But another great thing, for instance, is that you can right click and then you never have to hold down click. It's kind of the same thing where if you you tap spacebar instead of hold it for manual crafting. So if you just tap right click, he just puts it out forever. And then you can just jump up and have your fun. So another thing that can be very useful is whenever you're dealing with multiple tiers, in case you need to downgrade or upgrade or that kind of thing, instead of bouncing back and forth between your build menu, you can just hold down the E key, and that will let you select different things within that family of crafting. So if you go into the B area, you can see there's like manufacturers, smelters, things of that nature. So if you have one selected in a family and you want to quickly go to another one, just hold E, and that will let you very fast get to different buildings of that family type. Another relatively early game item that can be extremely useful if you get it going very early is the awesome sink. Now this is basically just a giant grinder that will take almost any item and then turn it into coupons. I love coupons. Now these coupons can be used in the awesome shop, which is back at our base right now, to buy a variety of things. And some of them are incredibly awesome. We're talking like the ladder and all sorts of very useful, great purchases. So definitely be getting this going early. One of the things I did just as like one of the very beginning things is I just hooked an iron mine into this that was making iron plates and just shoving it into here. Now, the problem with this is that as you use the same item, it gets, you know, harder and harder to do it. So this works for early game, but quickly will not work as you move into mid and late game. But it's a great way early to get some coupons and do what you need to do with them. So definitely check out that store and go from there. Oh, also as a small side tip, try shredding a coupon for some fun. As your factory gets larger, you'll start using more and more storages to hold the plethora of items that your factory will be producing. I at first was going to use signs to label all of the storage so I'd know exactly where it is. But then I found a great tip from some other casters on ways to do that. Every storage has an outflow. So what you can do is put a single conveyor belt on the outflow, and that will show you exactly what item is in that storage. It's a much more visual way to see what's inside of them. And for me, frankly, a lot better than just going down a wall of text on signs. So a very cool way to organize your stuff. Just a suggestion to make things a bit easier. A great tip for getting around your base easily, especially as you start having a second floor of conveyor belts everywhere, is understanding that sliding actually goes under them. So if you're trying to get around your factory floor quickly, you just slide right under the conveyor belts, which is pretty great. Sometimes jumping can get you stuck on stuff, so if you get in the habit of knowing like where you can slide and when, it can really speed up how you get around your factories. An absolutely fantastic aspect of this game is the to-do list. There are going to be times when you leave your base, and you leave your base with a purpose. It might be to construct a giant coal power plant. It may be to make an oil thing or a nuclear reactor. I don't know. I haven't done most of those. But you may leave your base with a very specific idea of exactly what you want to do. And a lot of times that thing is going to require a lot of resources. So instead of sitting there and adding everything up that you need, what you can do is open up your build menu, and you can quickly and intuitively build yourself a to-do list in the game of exactly what you need. So what you can do here, let's say I'm going to go build a coal power plant. So I know I'm going to need 2 miners. I'm going to need 3 water extractors. I'm going to go to power. I'm going to need a bunch of generators. And then, you know, just for fun, we'll say I'm going to need a whole bunch of conveyor belts too, just so I add that on there. Now what this does is this takes the list of everything that I added right up there, and it puts every single resource I need in a big list, so I know exactly what's on me and what I need to build all of those things. It's awesome. Also, another great tip for this that somebody just mentioned in chat that I didn't even know. When you're adding things to your build list, you can hold down Shift, and you can do things in groups of 10. That's awesome. Another little tip that I just learned from chat. Thanks, chat. Appreciate you. But yeah, this is a great way to make sure you leave your base with exactly what you need to get done whatever you're trying to do. A great tip for moving volume in mass, which you're going to need to do regularly, is if you shift-click on any single thing, it'll move the entire stack. That's awesome. That saves you a lot of clicks. But if you control-click on any item, it will move every single item of that type back and forth between your containers. So this is shift-click. This is control-click. And getting used to using control click can dramatically speed up how fast you clear things out. So now instead of doing this, click, 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 go to here, click, 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 go to here. Now you're doing things like this. Well, needless to say, it speeds things up. A little too fast in that case, but you get the point. So as you're making bigger containers and moving big groups of stuff around, control click can be a lifesaver and save you lots and lots of clicks. So one thing that you will be doing a lot in this world is moving around. You will get various equipment and things that you can put on to do that, like the legs that I'm using now and all sorts of other stuff. I'm not going to spoil it too much. But the big thing about this is that there is a method of getting around this world that a lot of people are using that works very well. And what that is it's called the slide jump. So if you are sprinting in this game and you slide with the C key, if you jump before your slide is done, as long as you're on a level or slightly downhill, you will get a nice big burst of speed. So at the very early game, it's not quite as pronounced. You do get some things later where it helps with your jumping and your sprinting, which really brings the speed in, that really makes you feel a lot faster than running normally. But even early game, it is slightly faster to do the slide jumping if you're trying to maximize your speed. And maybe something to check out, especially later in the game, to get around a lot quicker. So a lot of you out there may want to have a specific customization or type of theming for your factory, and you don't want to necessarily do everything at once. So there are some global themes that you can do to make your factory yours. What you do is you hit the X key, and that will bring up your paint swatches. What you're mainly looking for is up here under default. If you change these, as long as you haven't manually painted anything in the world, it will update all of it for you at once. So you can make your different themes here, and then as you place them in the world, by hitting edit and adjusting the different colors, you can then go through and theme the whole thing to you and your flavor. So anyway, cool way to do that. And check it out yourself if you want to make your base a little more colorful. Anyway, hope some of these tips helped you. If any of these tips were helpful to you, let us know. If there's any awesome tips that you know that aren't in this video that you think are great for beginners, post it. Let us know what you think, and maybe we'll make an addendum or something later. We do have a more mid-game and intermediate tips video coming later that covers things like hyper jump cannons, blueprints, and things like that. But we're going to save that for a separate video, and also I want to play the game more before I make that video. So we will talk then, most likely in the future, if I make that video, which I probably will but might not. And regardless, I really appreciate you watching, and as always, hope this helped. See you at twitch.tv/CohhCarnage. Bye-bye.